closing time. Open all the doors.
It's closing time. Cupid the Destroyer.
It's closing time, so just listen and learn. See, the sharper your game, the more money you earn. Ray's got the question, so hurry up before you missed out. Cause JD's dropping knowledge like the textbook slipped out. You need advice, you need guidance. On the way to appointments in the streets driving. Or even if you're doing fine, you're just working on the grind. When you look at your clock, you will see that it's closing time.
Welcome back to another episode of Closing Time with JD Diskin. My name is Ray Lodato. I am JD's co-host. And on today's show, we're talking about conquering time management, how to let go of a loss, and reinforcing your why. And then we're going to get into a little listener mailbag. And speaking of our listeners, Jay, we got a short note yesterday I wanted to read at the very top of the show.
All right, I'm ready.
You know anything about this?
No.
Okay, it says, the recent podcasts have been okay, but there's not nearly enough JD. Can we cut back the interviews and give the people what they want? You don't know anything about that?
Don't know anything, but I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it was submitted by your mom. JD's mom was actually, that's who sent that in.
That does make, big fan.
Yeah.
She's a big fan.
Yeah, big fan of the show.
Big fan of the show.
Yeah.
Big fan of JD.
All right, but first, before we get into the show itself, we finally have a winner for JD's Bucks.
Yes.
All right, and that is Amanda Fainin, a Philadelphia rep, currently in AST. Congratulations to Amanda.
I am surprised it only took 3 or 4 episodes to get to 20 people sending in a comment.
And I know you're disappointed that this person's from Philadelphia, meaning that you'll actually have to pay up as opposed to just dodging it for whenever.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's fine. She'll get paid in December, but I do like that it stays here.
Yeah, bonus time.
Right.
All right. Well, Jay, last week, big week for Power. What were your thoughts on our invasion of the NBA draft?
I really liked it. You know, what I thought was great is that, you know, the reality is we are now a billboard realization company. And we started this movement where now every, you know, Joe Schmo is putting up billboards, recruiting LeBron, or just doing things that they think are funny. But now we step it up a notch and we get airplanes to fly around the NBA draft. I'm looking forward to the copycat crimes going on with other businesses now trying to fly airplanes.
Yeah, absolutely. And what'd you think about the content we put out on social media that night, Jay?
Oh, I loved. The Narcos was unbelievable. For those that haven't seen that, we will include a link when we send out this podcast.
Good thinking.
And I am very much looking forward to the lawsuit from Netflix.
Yeah, you sent me a very nice note that night.
Yeah.
You finally earned your salary once in 8 years. Before we get into the show, we had some emails that we got in about the CDI podcast with Lillian Humphrey 2 episodes ago that I wanted to read because it just makes me feel good that people are finding value in these interviews and are getting something out of it. So this is from Gabrielle Curtis, a Denver remodeling consultant. She says, I feel incredibly lucky to be at Power as a woman in the Denver office and to hear podcasts such as this one to keep the conversation going, that conversation being from the CDI Summit. Yep. I truly feel that this is a message that is promoted from the top down here at Power. And it's incredible to see the proactive movement and agility that has come from our people ultimately wanting to do things the right way. This means having those uncomfortable conversations, but only having been here since January, I can honestly say I'm empowered to support and actively participate to keep these conversations going. A huge shout out to Lil and the support from JD and Asher and all to keep this ball moving. So there you go. Nice thought from Gabrielle in Denver. And from Heather Williams, a Denver pre-install inspection manager. Lillian Lord Humphrey killed it. I love that Power is so open to new ideas and will make it happen. I've been lucky enough to attend CDI twice, and there is so much value in that summit. I enjoy these podcasts and looking forward to the recaps of other events, especially ones I don't attend. So there you go, Jay. Again, just giving the people what they want.
Exactly. I mean, my mom is not alone in loving Closing Time with JD Diskin. But in all seriousness, those emails are great, but I think we should also make sure that people don't forget the importance of referrals and bringing in more people to the business, especially women, especially people of color and different races and ethnicities and all that, because not only does it help the business grow, but it also helps the whole CDI mission, which is better education, better understanding of what's going on in the offices and with the people in those offices.
Well said, Jay. Well said. Well, look, let's move on to some of the subject matter of the show. And first topic is how to conquer time management. Jay, that's a topic I imagine many people listening have an interest in because, look, if that's something you can master, the world's your oyster, right?
Yeah, and I think right now with the business having everyone starting in marketing and then transitioning into the sales department as opposed to just starting directly in sales, when you're in marketing, you know what time you come into the office, and you have a pretty good idea of what time you're going to be done for the day. And when you transition to sales, it's different. It's not as kind of cut and dry. And so when you have a set schedule and then you don't, it's a little tough to kind of get things done that you need to do. Mm-hmm. So I thought it would be a good idea to talk about it. And one of my recommendations is to take advantage of the time that you are not on the schedule, whether it's a morning off, whether it's your closers camp starts at 10 that day. That would be a day that you would want to wake up, make sure to get up early, go to the gym, do things like that, whatever the things that you need to do are, getting those things done will allow you to just feel better and know that you've accomplished something already that day.
For those people that maybe have more of a regimented set schedule, like yourself, your schedule's fairly consistent, right?
Yep.
What do you do day in and day out to really get the most use out of the squeeze?
I try to be as efficient as possible with my time, trying to have a plan each and every day of what I'm going to do. And when there are, times where there's an opening, try to fill that with something that can, help the business or something that I'm working with.
So when you're driving in the morning,
yeah,
do you have an idea of exactly what you need to do and want to do that day and in what order?
That's exactly what I have. I know exactly how I'm going to start the day, what's going to happen, after that, and each hour of that day is planned out.
Now, another topic that we have heard a lot about from the listener comments and such is how to let go of a pitch miss. Now, look, that's very specific to sales, but really it's a universal topic, right? How do you let go of a loss?
Here's something that I recommend, and this can also happen in marketing as well. At the end of the appointment or at the end of the day, you should have a notebook and write down the things that you did well and the things that you could improve upon. And the key with this is being honest with yourself and to do it on every appointment, no matter what the result. Because there are going to be times in the sales world that you get someone to say yes, but there are actually things that you could have done better. And there are, of course, times that you pitch miss, and there could be things that you did really well that isn't much room for improvement, right? But if you're writing down the list of the things that you're doing well and the things that you could improve upon, you should be looking over that list on a weekly basis, and you'll see patterns. You'll see, you know what? I didn't do a good job warming up with the wife, or I didn't do a good job creating urgency. And if you see that multiple times, that's something you have to work on. And, with the culture of the offices and of the organization, there are always people there to help you. And if you can identify what you're struggling with, you can find the people that can have that as a strength that you could reach out to, and they can help you get better at those things.
I love that notion of not resting on your laurels and being critical about your victories, right? It's easy to look at a loss and say, what could I have done better? Because the result wasn't what you wanted, right? But what you really need to focus on isn't so much the result, it's the process. And I think a lot of times if you win or if something goes good, there's that tendency to just dwell on the result and not be critical about how could I still get better even though things went the way I wanted.
And by doing this, the best part of it is that it allows you to then let go of that appointment. So if you write down the things you did well, the things you need to improve upon, then that's it. Then forget about that appointment and just move on to the next one. And the problem is when you don't do these things, you don't write them down, these appointments stay with you. And you're now 0 for 4 and you're 0 for 6 and you're 0 for 10, and you keep thinking about the 0 for 10 as opposed to, looking at something that can actually help change you to become better.
So speaking of that, right, something just kind of swirling around in your head, not being able to let it go. Jay, when you're speaking, you're drawing from years of experience in the business, both selling and mentoring remodeling consultants, right?
Yep.
And as you remind me frequently, I don't have that same experience. So I'm approaching this from a little bit of a different angle. It's said that if you do not learn from the lessons of history, you're doomed to repeat them. Right? And in school, my favorite classes were always history and philosophy. And I always tried to learn from those readings to teach myself more about how to live a fulfilling and just life, but also how to avoid the pitfalls of human nature. Do you have any books, Jay, that you find yourself continually drawing from and learning from as you go through life?
One of the books that we read at a leadership conference, actually in Atlantic City, and I don't know how long ago it was, but it's a book called The Other Wes Moore. And it's really, to me, a fascinating story. It's about a person named Wes Moore who grew up in a not so great area of Baltimore, and throughout his life, there were some key moments that people helped him along the way, and he ended up having this remarkable life. Ended up going to Oxford and became a Rhodes Scholar, I believe, and just an amazing life. And the story also talks about another person in Baltimore named Wes Moore.
Couple blocks down, and ends up going to jail. And the story kind of talks about how the Wes Moore who wrote the book, how in certain stages of his life, people kind of helped him to not go down the wrong path, and that this other Wes Moore unfortunately didn't have the right people around him to be there during those critical times. And I think about that with power. I mentioned earlier the culture and the mentorship and the guidance that people receive here. It's really allowing them to take their life in the direction that will lead to ultimate happiness. And we should never forget how much we can do for others, and it might be small things. Might just be answering the phone call when someone's frustrated and just being I'm listening, I hear you, and tomorrow's going to be a better day. And just that one conversation could end up changing someone's life. You know, they could end up just being able to vent, getting up the next day and having a great day, and all of a sudden they're, having a great career at Power. But in order to get to that point where you're making a positive impact on other people, you have to have your own house in order, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
For me, if we're talking about books that I find myself continually drawing from, I go back to this book called Meditations. It was written by Marcus Aurelius, and he was known as the last of the 5 good emperors of Rome and as the philosopher amongst emperors. And he believed in this school of thought called Stoicism. And one of its core teachings was that the path to happiness for humans is found in accepting this moment in time as it presents itself, and by not allowing ourselves to be controlled by our desires for pleasure or our fear of pain. So if we're talking about how to let go of a pitch miss, I think this quote applies directly. And that is, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. All these things that happen to you in life, a lot of times they're random, they're cruel. Good and bad things happen to all sorts of people. But what you do in the face of those things, how you respond, that reveals character, right?
Yep.
So when you're talking about the ups and downs of life and business, that's the core of the conversation, right?
Absolutely. And I think also to kind of help you, mentally, it's just if you each and every day give the opportunity everything you've got, everything's going to be okay. And there's going to, even when you give everything you got, that's all we ask. And it's we understand you're going to fail, you're going to have bad days, and that's okay. If you continue to do the right thing day in and day out, it's all going to work out in a positive way. And that's really what you should just focus on. And that should also be, something that can allow you to let go of the failure. So it's all right, I didn't have a good day today. I did everything I could. That's okay. I'm moving on to the next.
Effort and attitude.
Yeah.
That's all we have control over. Effort and attitude. All right. And Jay, let's talk about the why and how to constantly reinforce your why. Keep your goals in the forefront of your mind. What are some ways that our listeners can do that?
I know there are people inside the organization that have a lot of success where they have a picture of something that is their why. And they put it in places that they are able to see all the time. So as an example, you have a daughter, having a picture of your daughter, seeing her will allow you to not cheat. Because when you're looking at her, you realize, what, if I cut corners here and I don't do what I'm supposed to do, it's going to negatively impact her. That's going to make you more likely to do the right thing. And the reality is, right, if you just do the right thing each and every day, you're going to be successful. The problem is that that's hard. It sounds easy, to do the right thing, to make sure when you knock at the door, you're smiling and giving that homeowner, the pitch to create that estimate or to do every aspect of the presentation in the home when you're tired, when it's hot out, when it's cold out, when this and that is going on. But if you're looking at your why, it's going to allow you to continue to do the right thing, especially when no one's looking.
And what about tying a reward to the goal.
That's something else I like, right? So there's also this opportunity for this financial freedom by doing the right thing and having success. So having something that you are going to purchase for yourself or for someone else, and having that also be a picture that you look at, that will also do the same thing and allowing you to do the right thing. So if you're like, you know what, if I put this work in over the next 6 months, I'm going to buy myself this car, or I'm going to buy my parents this vacation, having a picture of those things so that you're constantly reminded of kind of why you're doing this will allow you to have more success.
That wraps it up for those 3 topics. Now we're going to dive into a little bit of a listener mailbag, Jay. All right, first up we have Ryan Hoffman, Philadelphia marketer. Any advice for a novice to marketing who's trying to cut his teeth in the field and improve door-to-door?
I would always remember that we are trying to set up a free estimate, and that's it. Like sometimes we overcomplicate things, right? So we're going to knock on someone's door. We're going to see that they have something that's original to their home or doesn't look good. We want to just remind them that, hey, I noticed you have the original windows, or I noticed you have the 3-tab shingle roof. We're just stopping by, setting up free estimates. When would be a good time for you? And not trying to make it more than what it is.
I think what's also important is you're meeting this homeowner for the first time. Show them a mirror of what they want to see. So when you approach the door, nobody wants to see someone who's struggling, who's huffing and puffing, who has just heard 50 no's and in a bad mindset. Show them a mirror of what they want. Someone who's smiling, who's positive, who's optimistic, who's kind, right? That's going to naturally lower their barrier for entry, lower resistance, and give you an easier time warming up and having that conversation.
It's a very, very good point. And also another reason why, Ray, you're no longer in the marketing department.
That's
right?
true.
Like,
that's true. There you go. Yeah. All right. Now, real quick before we move on to the next question, what does Marcus have to say about this? So I pulled a quote from Meditations that I think speaks perfectly to that question. And that is, confine yourself to the present. Be where your feet are. Focus on this individual moment in time and be the absolute master of it. If you do that, you will win more moments than you will lose. And not just when it comes to your bank account, when it comes to developing your character. Next question comes from Matt Gussie, Philadelphia Sales. A lot of Philadelphia representation on the pod today, Jay. What are some things that you would do inside or outside of work that would get you out of a slump? Slump busters, Jay.
Yeah,
Slump
that's a
busters.
great question. This might sound kind of strange, but I always think about the person at Northeast Building Products that is welding corners.
I wasn't sure where that was going for a moment.
Right. So there's a person at Northeast that has been there for years, and every single day he's welding corners. He's taking the corners of the window and welding them together. And I always think, like, as bad of a day as I'm having, or if I'm 0 for 4 or 0 for 9, like, at least I'm not just welding corners each and every day. So I think it's really just when you're 0 for whatever, just smile, stay positive and just continue to kind of trust the system and make sure that you're doing everything each and every day the way that you're trained. And if you do that, you'll break out of that slump.
Yep. And let's not forget that slumps are mainly mental, right? Like, just like success begets success, and you're in a good spot and you're feeling it and you're approaching every day with this winning mentality, the opposite of that is true too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Asher, has said in the past, like, if you're going to be okay being 5 for 5, you got to be okay with being 0 for 5. And just stay level-headed. When you are 5 for 5, you're not the greatest thing that's ever happened. And when you're 0 for 5, you're not the worst thing that's ever happened. Just stay consistent and understand that your fortunes will change quickly.
Absolutely. And our boy Marcus weighs in on this too. He says, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment.
This guy kind of writes and sounds a little bit like Yoda.
Do or do not. There is no try.
It's like a little...
But that's basically that you have full control over how you allow events to impact your psyche and, as such, the direction of your life. So exercise control over that direction. And Jay, last listener question says, if there was one thing that you thought Power did better than any of their competitors, what would it be?
I would say that...
Billboards, right?
We do billboards better than our
anyone.
competitors? Yeah, for sure. But seriously, I think we think of and do right by our people better than our competitors. We actually genuinely care about our people. We want our people to be happy. And our belief is that if our people are happy and well trained, that they will find success. And by finding success and being happy, it will be a win for the business.
Great. Well said, Jay. And I want to throw this out to all of our listeners, an invite to send in some questions. Now, Power co-CEO Corey Schiller has been teasing us with a possible appearance on the podcast for a while. Don't know when it's going to happen, but when it does, I want to be prepared. And if any of our listeners out there have any questions for the man, the myth, the legend, please send them in, and we'll make sure to read the best ones when Corey pops on. Lastly, before we get out of here, Jay, some housekeeping.
Yeah.
JD Spotlight of the Week.
Now it's time for Office of the Week. This Office of the Week is brought to you by Invisalign Braces. Because let's face it, if JD got normal braces, he'd look like a 12-year-old.
Oh, my Spotlight of the Week is going to go to the Denver office.
Okay.
Who already has, as we are recording right now, which is Friday, June 29th, they already have multiple Triple Crown days for the week. And then my co-spotlight is going to Chicago, who hasn't had a Triple Crown day yet, but they are looking at the possibility of having a Triple Crown week and finishing the month strong.
Very cool. Big ups to Denver and Chicago. And lastly, let's subscribe to Power HRG on YouTube when you're listening to this. Send in those questions and comments to digital@powerhrg.com. As always, apologies to Asher Rayfield. Ran out of time. We'll get him on next week's pod. And I want to leave the listeners with one more quote from my man Marcus before we get out of here. When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love. Think on that, and until next time, always be closing.
Closing time.